America's biggest adversaries, China, Russia, and Iran, are increasingly teaming up in ways that could undermine US objectives, especially at a time when the high-altitude Chinese balloons are busy violating the US airspace and creating chaos around the world. Americans see China as a strong competitor in the geopolitical and economic space. As war rages in Ukraine, one of which China thus far has refused to condemn, Americans are concerned about the growing partnership between China and Russia. Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran are clearly in one bloc opposing the US hegemony. And these are just the latest examples of America's top geopolitical foes finding a common cause. Can the US take on China, Iran, and Russia all at once?
As I've said since the beginning of my administration, we seek competition, not conflict with China. We're not looking for a new Cold War. I expect to be speaking with President Xi, and I hope we're going to get to the bottom of this. But I make no apologies for taking down that balloon. Thank you very much.
Russia and China proclaimed a strategic partnership without limits just before the former's invasion of Ukraine. Iran, on the other hand, is helping Russian President Putin fight that war by providing him with military assistance. Beijing and Tehran have their own strategic relationship, once that's been several decades in the making. The leading autocratic states don't have formal security alliances the way Washington does, but in ways more than one that makes them even more dangerous.
We've consistently made the point that we've engaged with the PRC and other global stakeholders on to encourage, in this case, the PRC to take steps to counter Iran's policies that destabilize the region and threaten our partners and our allies. Iran's nuclear program, its ballistic missile program, its other malign activities and influence are profoundly destabilizing in the region.
If we look at why these countries are coming together against US, one of the answers would be sanctions and pressure from Washington. While Beijing is officially neutral on Russia's invasion, has repeatedly blamed it on the US and NATO and refused to criticize Kremlin, Moscow in turn publicly backed Beijing's muscular response to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. The two powers have also joined forces on a series of recent votes at the UN Security Council, including to veto US-backed sanctions on North Korea. After US Secretary of State Blinken warned of China's potential provision of arms to Russia, Beijing urged the US to stop deflecting blame and spreading disinformation. Not in decades has the US faced such prospects of near-term military confrontation in several separate theaters.
向战场源源不断提供武器的是美方，而不是中方。美方没有资格对中方发号施令，我们也从不接受美国对中俄关系指手画脚，甚至胁迫施压。中方在乌克兰问题上的方针归结为一句话，就是劝和促谈。究竟是谁在呼吁对话争取和平，又是谁在拱火递刀鼓动对抗？国际社会有目共睹。
These are dangerous times in US-Middle East relations. While Iranians protest in the streets, the regime has armed Russia with drones for its war on Ukraine, and nuclear negotiations with US are at a standstill. Meanwhile, Washington's bilateral relations with Saudi Arabia are tension-ridden, and many observers are calling for a rethink of America's whole approach to the region.
When it comes to India's relationship with Russia, we've consistently made the point that it's a relationship that developed and was cemented over the course of decades, really came to be during the Cold War, at a time when the United States was not in a position to be an economic partner, a security partner, a military partner to India.
India has been hailed globally, time and again, on its strategically independent foreign policy. Russia has repeatedly praised India's independent and balanced position. Since the hostilities broke out in February, the West hoped that India aligned itself with Ukraine and against Russia, especially given New Delhi's growing involvement in the Indo-Pacific in recent years. But India refused to join the Western bandwagon, or for that matter, any bandwagon. However, one must not forget that Russia and China are friends, with Moscow backing Beijing since the 1960s.
We have a difficult relationship with China. We're perfectly capable of managing it. It's if I get global understanding and support, obviously it is of help to me. But this idea that I do a transaction, that I come in one conflict because it will help me in conflict too, that's not how the world works. So a lot of our problems in China have nothing to do with Ukraine, have nothing to do with Russia. They predate it.
India has moved to the front line of diplomacy to resolve the turbulent situation in Taliban-ruled Afghanistan by joining Russia and Iran in a new Moscow-backed troika. Russia, the United States and China had formed the earlier troika, which now has been disbanded. Iran, which holds the world's second largest gas reserves, has applied to join the BRICS, the group of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa that Beijing and Moscow see as powerful emerging market alternative to the West. And as the famous saying goes, my enemy's enemy is friend. The idiom is seen playing out in geopolitics today.